We need to highlight some unhealthy behaviors
we do on the regular.
that could cost you your mental health and happiness.
When we're more aware, we can improve. Here are 15 toxic behaviors that have been normalized by society. Number 1. Drinking. Drinking on the regular
Is about as normal as not smiling on public transport. It's assumed that most adults end the day with a drink or two,
or the week with a drink or 5. Just because it's legal and acceptable,
doesn't mean it's good or healthy.
it's just become so accepted that no one bats an eye when you crack open a cold one.
On the contrary, try bringing a non-alcoholic beverage to a party.
And see what a scene it creates,
Drinking leads to reckless behavior, confrontation,
and regrettable texting. Yet it's somehow more of a freak move to not be into it.
Number 2. Blaming your parents for everything. Crap about you.
So your parents messed up a bit. No one comes out of childhood unscathed. We don't all enter adult life
With the same starting point,
and that's something a mature adult deals with.
and gets on with regardless.
The truth is that you can remain a child to your parents and continue
To blame them for everything they did wrong.
or you can start acting like a grown-ass adult yourself and start from exactly where you find yourself
And begin to improve yourself every day.
and Mr. Lim says
We've got plenty of videos,
to help you do just that.
so click subscribe now.
Number 3. Sexualizing children. It is currently completely acceptable how children are framed when it comes to advertising.
Marketing and fashion.
Why high heels for a 3-year-old even exists is a mystery.
Even imposing suggestive
Romances between 2 young children in Valentine's Day. Advertising is creepy when you stop and think about it.
But how often do we instead think,
AWW, how cute. Little boys and little girls don't need to be groomed to feel suggestive adult relationships with each other. Nor should short skirts or tight-fitting clothes.
be needed to make them more attractive?
To whom certainly not to each other.
So again, we ask to whom? Number 4. Overtime. In many large cities,
If you are not doing overtime, then you're working undertime
overtime has become part of what is required.
to gain recognition and be considered for a promotion.
We're sure you've all experienced a toxic work culture, where anyone who dares to leave when their work is done
Instead of waiting until the boss leaves,
is chastised as being uncommitted to their work. Many work contracts even include a minimum number of overtime hours that are expected before overtime is paid for, which is often more than 60 hours a work week. There's a long and continuous
work week doesn't inspire innovation, diligence, or enthusiasm to get the job done.
but rather it seems to merit
Seat warming over performance.
Number 5. The fear of getting fat.
A 2014 study highlighted in the New York Times
Showed that 81% of 10-year-old girls are more afraid of getting fat than they are of cancer, nuclear war.
or losing their parents.
The same study showed that 42% of third-grade girls wanted to be thinner,
And 51% of age 9 and 10-year-old girls.
feel better about themselves when they're on a diet. How did we get here? Somehow all of these overt messages that fat is a fate,
Worse than death has filtered down to our children.
and these fears can last a lifetime.
Number 6. Gender stereotypes.
Stereotyping our feelings or actions according to an outdated list of masculine
And feminine traits is completely anti-progress.
Some of our most toxic behaviors
Come from trying our darndest to fit into these roles. Men being uncommunicative or tough,
when something affects them,
or women feeling pressure to act indecisive or submissive.
when they would prefer to take control of a situation.
Even the most basic shades of color are still chosen for genders.
Will there ever be a time when pink is not a girl color?
And blue not for boys.
These stereotypes led to other toxic behaviors, like our next point.
Number 7. Toxic masculinity.
What do G.I. Joe, James Bond and Donald Trump all have in common?
Yep, an above average dose of toxic masculinity.
The rougher, The tougher, the more womanizing, the better.
Men are taught to replace feelings with catchphrases, or more violence the moment conflict arises.
If you've ever heard someone explain away a behavior as boys will be boys,
you know just how absurd this really is.
toxic masculinity is the social pressures placed upon men to be violent, competitive,
Independent and unfeeling.
know what? We recommend you listen to Toxic Relationships
By Hope You Taram on Audible, where she explores all types of toxic relationships.
Man, shit gotta be around here somewhere.
Number 8. Accepting mediocrity and applauding effort instead of results. Try your best.
is about the worst advice you could give a child who has big dreams.
Talk about setting them up for disappointment. Yet it's also the advice we give ourselves when we're trying to do something significant.
The truth is that your best has nothing to do with it.
And just trying won't get us anywhere.
Let's get real. It's just something we say to make ourselves feel better if it doesn't work out.
But we're better than that. We can face the disappointment along the way.
In real life, there are no prizes for trying and no midway medals.
Yet accepting mediocrity has become the norm.
Number 9. The crazy role models that people look up to. God bless Kendall Jenner, but is she really who you want your child to look up to? What value change
or foundation has she let out for us to follow? How has she paved the way for us to feel better, or see further, or think deeper? She just makes most of us feel like we're not hot or rich enough when we allow people like Kendall Jenner to be
who we look up to. We limit ourselves.
There are so many more role models we could have. People like Alyssa Carson.
Alyssa, who exactly?
At 19 years old,
She'd just become the youngest person in history.
to pass all of NASA's aerospace tests.
And now she's an astronaut. Now, don't you think she would be a better
For your
person?
future kid to know about.
Number adding sugar to every item that we purchase. According to the American Heart Association,
The average American eats 20 teaspoons of added sugar per day.
that's a ton of sugar. And the reason we don't even realize it
It's
is
so well hidden. There are more than 60 names for added sugar, so it's hard to spot this master of disguise.
according to Johns Hopkins Medical School, here are some of the most
Common pseudonyms that sugar goes by.
if it has the word syrup in it. Words that end in OS,
Man, shit gotta be
like
around here
dextrose,
somewhere.
Fructose maltose. Add fruit nectars,
juice concentrates,
honey agave.
and molasses to the list.
And those are all sugars that are consumed every single day.
Number 11. Racial bias in criminal news.
Although it's unbelievable, we're still identifying people according to race
What is more incredible is the overt racial bias.
when reporting on crime. When a crime is committed by a white assailant, there's always a discussion around their mental state, or prior abuse, or excuses for the behavior. However, when a black person commits a crime,
They're outright guilty,
with only the intention of being a seasoned criminal,
no backstory or trauma,
or mental health issues considered,
unless supporting the narrative.
that they are a crazed criminal.
While crime is crime and not acceptable at any event.
How we portray criminals should be equal across the board. And if we don't correct this toxic behavior, we'll continue to see racial biases.
In all areas of life.
Man, shit gotta be around here somewhere.
Number 12. The enormous amount of screen time people get.
From the moment we wake up to the time we go to bed,
We are captive to screens. And we don't only mean your phone and your laptop. It's become
so socially acceptable that everywhere we go,
screens are popping up. The train in the taxi. The elevator.
flashing at us,
While we stand in line at the store. In the foyer.
to our kids' school, it's become socially acceptable to thrust screens in front of us at every turn.
Without even a thought of consent this toxic mess of digital messaging is infiltrating our lives.
Yet we accept and continue the trend. And coaches, we released a video that will help you.
Rid yourself of your own toxic thoughts. Be sure to watch
10 toxic beliefs that keep you from growing.
and follow some great advice.
Number 13, using your kids to make money of social media.
One of the most toxic behaviors on this list that most people turn a blind eye to is posting your kids' lives online. Before they've even asked for privacy, their privacy is violated by public posts,
Pranks, or having their whole life made public for the sake of royalties from unboxing videos. So many people have opinions on parents who dress up their kids and pop them on a catwalk.
but posting photos and videos of your children for some kind of social status is the same thing. Worst of all is those who monetize
Their children's lives through blogs and vlogs,
These kids don't have a say of how.
or when their lives are plastered all over the internet and have no control of how it will affect them.
As they age out of their parents' grip. Number 14. Expecting immediate answers.
It's scary to notice
How people perform when they realize
someone has read their message.
and not replied immediately.
The two-tick fever is real and forces us to respond to everyone all the time, regardless of what we are doing, or else risk breaking some cardinal rule. Unlike the 5-second rule of dropped food, this one has far more health risks involved. It can cause constant anxiety and dependence on our phones,
Causes our dopamine to fire up for the wrong things,
what ends up causing a total drama where there wasn't really one to begin with.
Number 15. Wastefulness. One of the most toxic behaviors of the 21st century
Is chronic consumerism. The thought that everything is easily replaced, that even if it ain't broke,
we should replace it, and that we replace rather than repair. It's acceptable behavior
to just ditch a picnic blanket in the bin because you don't feel like carrying it anymore.
because, hey,
You could just buy another one, or throw away your broken hairdryer instead of replacing it. All of this hassle, free living, is leading to a climate crisis,
and we're all in that together.
tidy up your habits,
And get a little more resourceful in looking after the stuff you've got.
and there will always be enough to go around.
What's the toxic behavior you're most guilty of?
Share with us in the comments.
And we can all help each other grow to be better.
Now you stuck with us until the end. Of course, you know.
We saved a bonus for you. Have you ever been ghosted? Or ghosted someone else? Ghosting is the 21st century
Way of getting out of any uncomfortable situation.
and it is really unhealthy. If anything,
from a flirt to a relationship is not working for you,
then just ghost them.
instead of fessing up and letting the other person know that you're just
Not that into them.
It's go gadget ghost. There's nothing cool about ghosting. Look, you need to rise to the challenge
Of being a grown-ass adult and deal with the situation responsibly and respectfully. If you're straightforward and honest, you'll realize the person will take it a lot better and be less hurt.
than if you left them with a ton of unanswered
Questions. It's the non-toxic thing to do. Thanks for watching,
Please leave us a like if you enjoyed this one.
and don't forget to subscribe.